Have you ever wondered if your online chats are as private as they seem? In today's hyper-connected world, every click, every message, every transaction we make online travels through multiple points before reaching its destination. We trust that this journey is secure, but what if it isn't? Cybercriminals often find ways to infiltrate this digital path, quietly positioning themselves between you and the person or the service you're communicating with. This type of cyber attack, known as a man-in-the-middle attack, allows them to spy on your activities, steal sensitive data, or even manipulate your communications, all without you suspecting a thing. So, how do they actually get in the middle of it? In this video, we'll be breaking down how these attacks happen, and more importantly, how you can protect yourself from becoming the next target and victim. Man-in-the-middle attacks exploit vulnerabilities in networks, web browsers, email accounts, user behavior, and even security protocols to gain access to sensitive information. The goal for cybercriminals conducting a man-in-the-middle attack is to place themselves in between two communicating parties, in the middle, like a user and a web application, without either side suspecting a thing. Once the attacker has positioned themselves in the middle, they can intercept and manipulate the communication in real time. This allows them to eavesdrop on conversations, steal sensitive data such as login credentials, and in some cases alter the information being exchanged to benefit their malicious objectives. Hackers use several techniques to infiltrate communications. Phishing is one of the most common entry points. Through a deceptive email or a link, a user might unknowingly download malware that infects their web browser, launching what's known as a man-in-the-browser attack. This malware allows hackers to covertly make changes to web pages, manipulate transactions, or monitor the user's activity, all without raising any red flags. Public Wi-Fi hotspots are also another major target for man-in-the-middle attacks. These networks often have minimal security measures compared to the networks that you have at home or the office, for example, making them an easy entry point for hackers. By compromising the router or setting up a fake Wi-Fi network that looks legitimate, often referred to as an evil twin, attackers can monitor all data transmitted over the network, potentially gathering login details, financial information, and other personal data. It's like setting up a fake postal office where all letters pass through, allowing the attacker inside to open up and read each letter. This is why it's so important to encrypt your communications. More on that later. Man-in-the-middle attackers don't stop at attacking Wi-Fi networks. They can also create fake websites that look exactly like legitimate ones. These are often referred to as phishing websites. Users who unknowingly enter their login credentials into these websites end up giving their information directly to the attackers. The hackers then use this data to access accounts on authentic websites or deceive users into making fraudulent payments. The process of a man-in-the-middle attack generally involves two stages: interception and decryption. In the interception stage, the hacker manages to divert data traveling between two targets, such as a user, and an online service without interrupting the flow of communication. This stealthy interception ensures the victims continue their interactions as if nothing is wrong. But once the attackers successfully intercept the communication, they must then complete step 2, which is to decrypt the information to access its contents. In today's world of encrypted data, this isn't always straightforward, but hackers may steal encryption keys, run brute force attacks, or employ specialized techniques like SSL and TLS hijacking and IP spoofing to gain access. Each method is carefully chosen by the attackers to fit the situation, allowing the attackers to bypass security measures and reveal sensitive information. Man-in-the-middle attacks come in various forms, but 3 of the most common and dangerous types are Wi-Fi eavesdropping, DNS spoofing, and session hijacking. Let's take a closer look at how these attacks work and how attackers pull them off. One of the most prevalent man-in-the-middle attacks is Wi-Fi eavesdropping, which targets unsecured public networks. This attack occurs when an attacker sets up or compromises a Wi-Fi network, allowing them to intercept communications between users and the internet on that compromised network. In many cases, hackers set up rogue Wi-Fi networks, evil twins, that mimic legitimate public Wi-Fi networks in places like cafes or airports, for example. These networks are designed to look identical to trusted networks, tricking users into connecting. Once the users are connected to the attacker's access point instead, the attacker can potentially monitor all of the data passing through the network, from login credentials to financial transactions, even when using a legitimate public Wi-Fi network. If your communications are not sufficiently encrypted, attackers can intercept data packets sent between the user and the router and easily read the data. This process is known as packet sniffing and can be done with tools like Wireshark. The intercepted packets contain raw data, which hackers can piece together to reveal sensitive information like passwords or credit card numbers. Many public Wi-Fi networks also don't use strong encryption. This is a problem, making compromise easier for attackers. Without strong encryption tools like a VPN to create an encrypted tunnel, or using secure protocols like SSL/TLS, users expose their sensitive information to anyone nearby with malicious intent. DNS spoofing, also known as DNS cache poisoning, corrupts something called the domain name system, DNS, to redirect traffic from legitimate websites to fraudulent ones. The DNS domain name system acts like the internet's address book, translating domain names into IP addresses that computers use to connect to websites. Attackers manipulate DNS by injecting false IP addresses into the DNS server or cache, so that when a user tries to access a website like deskcert.com, the corrupted DNS directs them to a malicious version of that site instead. This fake website is often a nearly identical replica of the real one, complete with the same logos, same forms, same designs. The user, unaware of the switch, enters their credentials into the site, handing them over directly to the attacker. In some cases, attackers compromise a DNS server itself or the cache stored on a user's computer or router. Once altered, the DNS cache continues to misdirect users until the cache is either cleared or repaired. This method is especially dangerous because it can affect large numbers of users at once, allowing attackers and hackers to steal login credentials, credit card details, and other personal data on a massive scale. Even savvy users may struggle to detect the attack, as the fake website looks and behaves just like the original. Session hijacking is another advanced form of man-in-the-middle attack, targeting the session cookies stored by your browser during active logins. When you log into a website, such as your email or bank, for example, a session cookie is generated and used to maintain your authenticated session without requiring you to log in repeatedly. Attackers can intercept these session cookies and use them to impersonate you on the website. This can be done through packet sniffing on insecure connections, where the attacker captures unencrypted cookies as they travel between your browser and the server. Once the attacker has the cookie, they can use it to impersonate you and access your account without needing your login credentials. This is known as hijacking, and tools like Firesheep make it very easy and possible. Another method attackers used is what's called stored cross-site scripting. In this attack, malicious scripts are injected into a website where they are stored and later executed in the victim's browser when the victim visits the compromised site. These scripts run without the user's knowledge, allowing the attacker to carry out various malicious actions. While cross-site scripting can potentially be used to steal session cookies by accessing them with JavaScript, modern browsers often protect cookies with what's called the HTTP only flag, which prevents such access. As a result, attackers typically leverage cross-site scripting to perform other harmful actions, such as redirecting users to phishing sites, logging their keystrokes, or carrying out actions within the same session, such as cross-site request forgery. In cases where cookies are not protected by the HTTP only flag, cross-site scripting can still be used to steal them, but this is becoming increasingly rare due to enhanced security practices in modern browsers. Protecting against man-in-the-middle attacks requires a proactive approach, as these attacks exploit the very systems we rely on for communication. To defend against them, both individuals and organizations need to implement specific cybersecurity measures aimed at securing their online interactions and endpoints. One of the most effective strategies is ensuring that all websites visited use HTTPS connections. The S in HTTPS stands for secure. And this security is provided by something called SSL or TLS protocols, which encrypt the communication between the user's browser and the web server. This encryption is indicated by the HTTPS prefix and a padlock icon in the browser's address bar. Users should be cautious of websites that offer only HTTP connections, as these are vulnerable to interception. Beyond HTTP, SSL/TLS can also be used to secure other types of connections, helping to safeguard against malicious web traffic and prevent spoofing attacks. Endpoint security is another critical component in the fight against man-in-the-middle attacks. Laptops, smartphones, workstations, tablets, and servers are often targeted by attackers looking to install malware and compromise communications. Keeping devices up to date with the latest patches and anti-malware software and hardening practices is crucial for closing vulnerabilities that attackers might exploit. Ensuring endpoints are sufficiently locked down and regular system updates help prevent attackers from gaining unauthorized access to these endpoints and installing malicious software. For those frequently accessing the internet from various locations, using a virtual private network, VPN, is an excellent defense strategy. A VPN encrypts all network traffic, ensuring that even if attackers manage to intercept data, they cannot read or manipulate it, the sensitive information being transmitted. This makes it especially valuable when using public or unsecured networks, which are common hotspots for man-in-the-middle attacks. Another essential security measure is what's called multi-factor authentication, which adds an extra layer of protection beyond just a password. Multi-factor authentication requires an additional verification step, such as a code sent to a user's phone before granting access to accounts or services. Even if an attacker manages to obtain your login credentials, multi-factor authentication makes it significantly harder for them to gain access and take over an account, providing a crucial barrier against unauthorized intrusions. If you'd like to dive deeper into how multi-factor authentication works and why it's so effective, be sure to check out our multi-factor authentication explained video. Encryption remains a fundamental requirement for network security by ensuring that all communication channels, whether email content, DNS records, messaging applications, or access points, use strong end-to-end encryption. Users and organizations can minimize the risk of data interception through encryption. Encryption scrambles the data so that even if it is intercepted, it cannot be read or used by unauthorized parties without the correct decryption key. Finally, avoiding public Wi-Fi networks when handling sensitive transactions is highly recommended. Public Wi-Fi, often found in airports, cafes, and other public places, may lack the necessary security protocols, making it easy for attackers to set up fake networks or compromise legitimate ones. When performing sensitive activities, like making purchases or accessing your financial accounts, it is best to use a secure private connection. So next time you connect to a public Wi-Fi or send a message online, remember that man-in-the-middle attacks are a real threat. But with the right precautions, like using HTTPS, VPNs, and multi-factor authentication, you can protect your data and keep your digital communications secure. Understanding these threats gives you the power to safeguard your online privacy. For more in-depth resources and training, including certification training like CISSP and CCSP and CISM, head over to deskcert.com. Stay vigilant and keep your connections safe.